Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Kylie and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in September with ratings. This is actually my first video, so I'm quite nervous, but yeah, stay tuned for all of the books that I read. So I actually had an amazing reading month. In prior months I haven't read as much, but I actually read 13 books this month, only one DNF, which is great. But yeah, so I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read this month. First books that I read in September was the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and oh my goodness, when I tell you, this is literally one of my favorite series that I've ever read. I'm not exaggerating. Literally the entire series, 5-star series for me, like hands down the best. Yeah, it's 4 books and 1 novella, which is included in the last book. But yeah, so book we follow Cassie, who is a natural at reading people, and she's recruited by the FBI to be a part of this house of other teenagers that have similar abilities, and basically they solve cold cases. But in this book, there's actually a series of murders that is going on in real time while they are trying to solve cold cases. And yeah, it's basically they're gonna have to use all their abilities to find the serial killer, and basically the rest of the books follow kind of a similar pattern. There's like a serial murder, and you know, we rely on the natural's abilities to solve these murders, and I just love this series. It's mystery, crime, YA, but it's just like I flew through all of them. It was so easy to read. Like I binged the entire series. I read each of them in one sitting. Each one of them was chef's kiss. I freaking loved it so much. Jennifer Lynn Barnes, like, her writing is just so easy to like read, and she just keeps your attention like the whole entire time. But yeah, I read these 4 in September. So the next book that I read in September was actually Things We Left Behind, which came out this month. I was so excited for this book to come out. I've been anticipating it since I read the first book in the Knock 'Em Out series, Things We Never Got Over. I love that book. That's a 5-star read for me. The second book kind of fell a little bit flat for me, but it was still so good. But I had been anticipating Lucian and Sloane since they popped up basically in the first book. Like, I was just obsessed and I wanted to know more. So Things We Left Behind is the 3rd book in the Knock 'Em Out series, and I love small town romance. I eat that up literally. So this book follows Lucian and Sloane, who have this kind of like rivalry. They basically hate each other, and you can see that in the first 2 books. They kind of have this back and forth with each other. But yeah, we basically get to see the backstory of how they met, because they actually known each other since childhood. So we get like snippets of that. It goes like back and forth between present time and past, and it's just it was so good. I loved that we got to see, you know, the backstory of Lucian. Like, I just Suit Daddy, love him. I freaking love him. But you know, this book kind of like, I think because I had such high expectations, I expected so much from it, and it didn't really give me like that 5-star feel that Things We Never Got Over gave me, but it was still nonetheless an amazing book. I really love the Knock 'Em Out series, small town romances. I absolutely love it. So that part. Anyway, so I actually gave Things We Left Behind a 4.5 stars. It just didn't really quite hit 5 stars for me, but it was still amazing and I loved it, and it was such a good end to that series. So yeah. So the next book that I read in September was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and wow, I haven't read a fantasy since I read A Court of Mist and Fury like a year ago maybe. I need to finish the Avatar series, but anyways, we'll move on from that. But yes, I read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Wow, this book it's just so beautifully written. I don't even know how else to explain it. I haven't read fantasy in a really long time, but I really wanted to jump into it. And I saw this book going around TikTok, Instagram, basically everywhere. Like, this book was everywhere, and I was like, I want to join the hype. I want to see what everyone's raving about. And wow, I was so not disappointed with this book. I gave it a 4.75 because the beginning was kind of slow and like I wasn't really like enjoying it, but the ending, like, give me book 2. Like, please give me book 2 right now. I need it. So basically in this book there is a war going on between the gods. I forgot the gods' names, but whatever. So we follow Iris Winnow, who works at basically like the newspaper for where she lives. And her brother has actually gone to war and she has not heard from him in a long time. So she starts writing these letters and slips them through like her wardrobe, and they actually get an answer back, but it's not from who she expects. So the one who actually is receiving these letters is actually her enemy that works at the same newspaper that she does. So Roman Kit is her enemy and he's writing her back this whole time, and she does not know who she's writing to, but you know, she's just kind of forming this connection with this person who she's writing letters to. And basically she ends up at the front lines of war, and it's just this whole thing. It's so beautifully written. Enemies to lovers, it's just so good. I gave this book 4.75 stars. I didn't give it a 5-star because the beginning was so slow for me. It, like, I was reading it so slow, I just couldn't really get into the story in the beginning, but the rest of it was just so amazing that I gave it a 4.75. So yeah. Next book that I read in September was Once Upon a Broken Heart. Oh my freaking god, I literally am obsessed with this. I have not stopped thinking about this book since I picked it up. Like, Jax, I literally can't get him out of my mind. Like, I'm feral for that man. I'm absolutely feral for that man. Like, I think about him every day. Every single day of my life I think about him. So in this book we follow Evangeline Fox, and Evangeline is learning that the love of her life is actually destined to marry another, and she, willing to do anything to stop this, strikes up a deal with the immortal Prince of Hearts. And she learns very quickly that striking a deal with him is not as easy as it seems. Chaos and trouble just find her everywhere she goes after she strikes up this deal, and the story is just so amazing. Like, I was obsessed from the get-go, like absolutely obsessed. And the Prince of Hearts is actually Jax, who is literally my favorite character I think ever. Like, in the history of me reading books, I think he's like actually one of my favorites. I'm actually so obsessed with this book. Like, it's unhealthy the amount of times that I actually think about it on a daily basis. Like, I am obsessed. Easily, like, the easiest 5 stars I've ever given in my life was to this book. Like, Stephanie Garber, Your Mind, like, wow. I was a little bit wary when I first started reading this because I know it does come after the Caraval series, and I have not read that yet. But I think even if you haven't read the Caraval series, you can understand this pretty well. I mean, I didn't really have that much trouble understanding like the plot or any, you know, stuff that happened. So I think you could still read this even if you don't read Caraval. So yeah, I do want to read Caraval though because it sounds really good, and I just kind of want to see what happens before this series. So yeah, the next book I read was The Ballad of Never After, which comes directly after Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I won't go into too much detail so I don't spoil anything for those that haven't read Once Upon a Broken Heart. But another 5 stars, like the easiest 5 stars. This series has me obsessed. Like, I instantly picked up The Ballad of Never After and was just like, I'm so in love with the characters and the story, and it's just literally one of my favorite fantasies that I've ever read. and I'm so freaking excited for A Curse for True Love, which comes out this month. I pre-ordered it because I was like, I need this book. No one talked to me on October 24th because I will be reading A Curse for True Love. No, I will literally be reading it the entire day. Fantasy that I read in September was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. So in this book we follow Signa Farrell, who is an orphan and is basically being strung along through this line of relatives that keep mysteriously passing away. Signa has to stay with her last remaining relatives, which are the Hawthorns, and basically the Hawthorns are this very rich, very kind of, they have a sort of reputation with them, and Signa is forced to live there because she has nowhere else to go until she gets her inheritance. So she basically is forced to live in this mansion with these people that she does not know. Their daughter is suffering from this illness that killed her mother, and no one knows where they got it. No one knows how to cure it. Signa actually comes into contact with the spirit of the mom, who tells her that she wasn't actually dying from an illness. She was actually poisoned, which is what caused her to die. And the same thing is happening to their daughter. So Signa basically now has to uncover a murder, but she cannot do so without the help of Death himself. I ended up giving this book a 4-star. It just had a really interesting plot and premise. I don't think I've ever read any book with this kind of plot before. I genuinely liked it, so that's why I gave it a 4-star. But yeah, I really recommend this if you're looking for like kind of like a gothic, romantic kind of fantasy vibe. Then I definitely recommend this. So the next book I read in September was How to Survive Your Murder by Danielle Valentine. And in this book we follow Alice, who is the sole witness in her sister's murder. So when Alice is on the way to testify for her sister's murder, in the courthouse bathroom, she's actually like knocked out by this girl, and she kind of goes back in time and she relives the moments before her sister's murder. And the choices that she makes could save her sister. And basically it's like a time travel kind of thing. Didn't love this book. I thought it was very interesting, but I didn't really love it. It was short, so I kind of like flew by it because it wasn't long. But it wasn't my favorite thriller I've read. I gave it a 3-star, and it just, you know, it was good, but it wasn't amazing. It just kind of fell a little flat for me. There's a lot of horror references in this book, so if you like that, I think you'll like this. If you're looking for a really quick, fast read for fall, this thriller, definitely, I think you should read it because it was super short and easy to get through. But yeah. So the next book that I read in September was The Right Move by Liz Tomford, and this follows her first book in the Windy City series, which is about Xander's and Stevie, and I loved that book. I ate that book up. It was so good. But this one follows Stevie's brother, Ryan, who's an NBA player, and Stevie's best friend, who actually is her coworker. They were flight attendants on the same plane. So we see snippets of both Indy and Ryan in the first book, but when I tell you, they did not do that man justice in the first one, because I absolutely freaking am obsessed with this man. I'm obsessed. I love him. Basically, Indy has gotten her heart broken by her ex-boyfriend, and she needs somewhere to live, so she moves into Ryan's apartment, and Ryan does not want her to be there. He's very adamant that he wants to live alone and be alone, and kind of just pushes Indy away. He doesn't want her to live there. But, you know, things sort of started moving along, and they formed this connection and this romance, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. I gave it 4.5 stars because there were some parts that were a little repetitive that I just didn't really like, but yeah, overall it was such a good read. So Liz Tom Ford actually has the third book in the series coming out this month, I think like next week or something, and I'm so excited. We get a snippet of the character in Indian Ryan's book, but I already know I'm gonna love that man and I'm gonna love that book. So yeah, I definitely will be reading that when it comes out this month. So yeah, the next book I read in September was Shatter Me by Tahir Mafi. I hope I'm saying that right, but yeah, this is one of the most hyped series I think ever, apart from like Akatar or The Cruel Prince. And I don't know why, but I've hesitated to grab this series for so long. I think that it was so hyped that I kind of felt like apprehensive about going into it. It also is a lot of books, so that kind of pushed me like away from reading it. But I finally read it, and man, I was so disappointed in this book. Like, I really had high hopes because everyone loves this series. But man, I just did not like it. I didn't like it. Please don't attack me for saying all this, but I really wanted to love it, but I didn't. So I gave it like 2 stars because I didn't love it. The last book that I read in September was actually the novella that comes right after Shatter Me. I finished it in one sitting because it's so short, but I also didn't really like it. We get Aaron Warner's point of view in that one, so you kind of see everything that happened in the first book from his perspective. I read Destroy Me and I gave it a 1 star. Please don't attack me for this, but I just don't love it. I hope that in the next books I end up becoming obsessed and love it like everyone else, but I just feel like the beginning of the series has been so disappointing to me. I don't know why, I just don't like it. I do want to read the rest of it, but the fact that I didn't like the first 2 is kind of making me not want to read the rest of it. But I'm gonna try my best to try to read it anyways. So those were all the books that I read in September. There was one book that I DNF'd, so I didn't really count it towards this video, but it was The Wrong Wife by Elle Steele. I just wasn't vibing with that book and I DNF'd it. I think at like 20% or something. So yeah, this was my reading wrap up for September and I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, so I see you in my next video.